Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Artsy Hair Jewelry Company. I'm glad you are here, and I have a few things to show you today. You are going to see some of the same things that you saw in my last video on basics. I'm continuing on showing you some things that you are going to learn working with beading and wire working. And so let me just get started. Okay, I have a necklace or part of a necklace going right here, and I have it on beading wire. I usually leave the wire on the spool. Otherwise, I would have to clamp it so the beads don't fall off. But the easiest way I have found is just leaving it on the spool and using as much as I need. But let me show you a time that that this technique is used on the beading wire. This is a necklace I made. This is polymer clay, and then this part of the necklace, just a very short part, is on beading wire. I added some polymer clay beads and some crystals, and so that part is on beading wire, which is attached to some metal elements that I made, some chain that have more crystals and metal beads, and a couple more polymer clay beads on those two, and then it goes on up, and the back of the necklace that goes around the back of your neck, I made the chain. Now all of this is sterling silver. So we are to the point where I have my beads strung, and now I need to crimp the ends. So what I'm doing is under this round bead right here on the end. I hope you can see it. There's a round bead. That is, it looks like a bead. It's a crimp cover. Underneath, I have a little pointer. Underneath this crimp cover is a crimp bead. And I'm going to show you. That's how you end. That's how you attach your. If it were a bracelet, you would be attaching your clasp. This is part of a necklace, so I could be attaching a clasp, but I'm going to be attaching this part of the necklace to the same kind of wire and this part of the necklace. I'm going to be attaching it just like this. So I already did one end, and I wanted to show you. There's the crimp cover, and I have left a very, very small loop right here at the end. I'm putting this pointer. This is a bead reamer I'm using for a pointer. Right there. It's just a tiny enough to put either a jump ring or a loop that I will be making. So I'm just leaving the tiniest little space, then crimp cover, and I always leave a tail that I feed down into the beads that are on there. And you don't have to leave a tail. I just found that in case in case the crimp pops off or something happens. If you have a tail, a lot of times the beads won't go flying off the end. I don't know. I just found it to be a more secure way of doing that. Now, I'm going to cut this. I have it going through 2 beads, but I don't want to leave any sticking out because these little parts that stick out past the bead, the little tail, if you leave it sticking out, a lot of times it will pop in between the beads and poke you in the neck, and it's very uncomfortable. So I always cut I make sure it's flush with my bead that I fed it through. Okay, so this is the part that's a little tricky because you can't, the first end that you crimp is always easier than the second side, because you don't have to worry about how tight or loose the beads are. You do not want to make your beads so tight that there's no movement. In other words, okay, I'm going to cut off extra here because believe me, you don't want to cut this so short that you make it hard to work with. Now, as far as crimps, let me show you. There's crimp tubes. Here are, I know it's very hard to see. I don't think my camera will go any lower. You have tubes, and those are kind of medium to large. Here's some teeny tiny little tubes. They are so small that I never use this size. I can't even imagine trying to use something that small. I mean, that is so tiny. I usually use, I'm trying to let it focus and it's not focusing, is it? But I use a medium. I think it's a size. They do have sizes on the packaging of the crimps, like 1, 2, 3, and that's probably a 4. I usually just throw all of my crimps together because that's how it ends up. Here's crimp tubes. They come in all different colors, all different metals. Here's some that are copper, and here's some that's supposed to be black. Here's some brass, so they're a gold color, but I work in silver so much that's why these are still in the package. I can't ever even imagine you having to use these. Maybe the copper now and then. Okay, so you have crimp tubes. Then you have crimp beads, which are like this. They're circles. These are tiny also. Now, I don't use crimp beads. I mean, there's a large one, and that teeny tiny thing is that you can barely see is a small one. But I don't think the beads hold as good as the tubes hold. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I used a crimp bead. I used the crimp tubes, like I said, a size 1 or 2. And on your beading wire, they will usually give you what size of a crimp to use. Right here, this says number 1 and number 2. So you can, and they're tubes. They're showing a tube. So you could use size number 1 or number 2. I thought that the 1 was bigger than the 2, but I had it backwards. Anyway, on the packaging, it usually, at least with the Beadalon brand, it will tell you what size crimp to use. Okay. Crimp covers. We have small, medium, and large crimp covers. And you don't have to use crimp covers. They just give a more finished look. I used to never use them. And as I progressed through the years with my jewelry making, I started using them because they do give a more finished look to your piece. And these are just silver plated. I do have sterling silver that I use most of the time. So where were we? Okay, so I have cut my the end of my beading wire, and I'm going to grab a crimp tube, and I'm going to feed the wire through the crimp tube. So the crimp is on the wire. Now I'm going to draw you a picture because these are both crimping pliers. This is for larger crimp beads or crimp tubes, and this is for smaller crimp tubes. But it's really hard to see. You can see that they're not straight like the pliers. They have, you can see the cutouts that they have. And let me explain what the cutouts are for. So you have the top of the plier, and you have a it looks like this. So this would be this side of the plier, and what it is, there's the end, and then you're going to have it's going to go up a half circle. Then next to it there will be a V, and then that goes out to the handle. On the bottom jaw of this tool, you will have the other half circle, and instead of a V, you'll have another half circle, and then that goes out to the plier. So did I do it too small? The top jaw is going to be like this. I'm doing it again so I can draw it bigger. The bottom jaw will be like this. And there's a reason for this. You're going to be using this tool twice on one crimp bead. Okay, so you have your bead strung on there. You want to bend it and feed the end back through. So you will have two sides of the wire going through there. You're making a loop on the end. I'm going to get my fingers out the way in just a minute. Now, this is the tricky part. You don't, like I said, you don't want your beads to be so tight that there's no movement, you know. So, and this, you'll just know after doing this a while how much play that you want to have. And so I am going to slide my crimp bead down, and I'm pulling on the tail, and I'm getting it so it's down close to the beads, but not too close. Because like I said, I want to leave space. That's probably about, I want to leave probably about 1/4 of an inch. That's about 1/3 of an inch. That looks like too much for my taste. And I just want to leave a very tiny loop, just enough to get a jump ring through. And it's tricky sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, I'm just checking it to make sure the beads aren't too tight, and they seem a little tight. I'm just gonna leave a little bit more room. I do have to attach my pendant in the middle of these beads, so a good way to tell if you have enough play is fold it in half, and if it folds in half easy, then that's good. If you had these too tight, you know, if you had the crimp bead and the beads were too close together with not enough play, you wouldn't be able to bend the necklace in half. So anyway, like I said, it's just something that you'll learn the more you do. It just takes time for some of this stuff, because like I said, there's no set amount of space. I'm going to leave about 1/3 of an inch from the last bead to my crimp bead. I think that's about what it is. Now, see, my loop wants to get big every time I let go of it. So, trying to get my fingers out of the way, but if I let go, then it has a mind of its own, and it moves. I'm just trying to get it perfect, and it's not working. My loop keeps getting bigger on me. The crimp bead keeps sliding. Okay, so now I'm going to hold, see, I have 2 wires because I fed it back through. You want to hold these wires apart, because when you squeeze down with the tool, it's going where that V is, it's going to leave it's going to squeeze the middle of the tube, and you want one wire on each side of the, I'll show you. So I'm just putting where the V is, I'm squeezing my crimp bead with the V, Did I get it? I might have to use my smaller crimp tool. This is made for, yeah, let me grab my smaller tool. It squeezed it a little bit, but not enough. So, and you can see this isn't easy. I mean, it does take practice, I'm not gonna lie. So let me grab my smaller one. I'm going to put the V around the bead and squeeze, and let me make sure. Okay, I have to use a different crimp bead because I messed this one up using my big crimping tool. The wire is not, gosh, these are so hard to get off sometimes. The wire, oh dear. I used the big crimping tool on the other side, but I must have grabbed a bigger crimp tube than I did for this side. I'm being very careful, trying not to cut the wire, because if I cut the wire, I'm going to be in real trouble. I will have to restring it because I won't have enough wire to feed back through the crimp tool that I'm going to put on. So, oh my goodness. I'm glad I have these mishaps when I'm showing you things, so you can see how I deal with mistakes. Okay, so my wire is a little wonky, but that won't matter. So let me grab another crimp bead. I'm going to try to grab a bigger one. I'm going to feed the wire through, and I'm going to feed it through again. And try to get it in the right place again, leaving enough. I have it up way too high. It's kind of messing me up where I messed up the first time, but I'll get it. I just need to, I pulled it right off of there. So, start over. Let me try it again. I'm feeding it back through. And I want to get the wire down. It might not work because I have that kink in the wire. Okay, I got it through. So let me make sure I have enough play in the, that's a little too tight. A little too tight. So I need to slide the crimp bead up and just leave a little more space. That's still a little too tight. So it likes to slide out of place. It does that a lot. Okay. I think that's good. I'm leaving a tiny space on the end, just enough for a jump ring to go through. I'm going to hold my two wires apart, and I'm going to crimp down with the V. Okay. And as you can see, I hope, let me get my fingers out of the way. Oh dear. It's flattened out, and the V has made a line down in between the two wires. I'm trying, gosh, it does not want to cooperate. There. It's not cooperating because it has that kink in it, but it does have a line going down the middle that the V made. And I'm hoping that, yeah, that's secure. I'm pulling up on it and it's not, the wire's not moving. So I don't think, is it? Let me finish my crimp. And so now I'm moving the pliers to where I have the circle, because I want this flattened out crimp bead to be made round. So you put it where the round cutouts are. And this is tricky because it always wants to jump around, but you just put it on either side and squeeze and it will make it round. And you're just going to have to believe me because it is so tiny, so hard to see, but it's round. And now I can put my crimp cover on. Now I'm going to use a medium size crimp cover. The crimp cover looks like they're in the shape of a C, and all you have to do is put your crimp in the opening of the crimp cover like so. And then, oops, I shouldn't have taken the pliers off. All you do is gently squeeze and the crimp cover will close around your crimp tube. It's easier said than done. Everything is so small. Okay, let me try it again. I'm just going to slide this over and gently squeeze. And that worked. And I'm just checking to make sure that I have it closed properly, and it looks pretty darn good. You don't want to squeeze too tight. Okay, so it worked. Yay. And I have a loop on the end where I'm going to put my jump ring. Now the tail, that's way, way long, but that's okay. I'm going to feed through a couple of beads like I did on the other end. And I always do this with pliers just because it's easier for me. And I see it coming out right here. I'll grab it and pull it. And then I can cut it flush with the second bead so it doesn't poke anybody. And voila, I have the part of my necklace ready to add the pendant, and then I can put these ends onto the next part of my necklace. So I can still see where this wire was kinked a little bit. I'm going to try to push it down in there further. It might not work. I didn't know a kink could give me so much trouble. Well, I'll do that another time. But so there you have it. Crimp beads, crimp tubes, crimp covers, and of course I will show you as we do this, you know, and I'll be having projects where we're going to be using crimps for bracelets and necklaces. So that's not the end of crimping, believe me. Okay, head pins. I have several. I messed them up when I was throwing my tools around. Head pins come in all different lengths, all different materials. As you can see, I think these are, how long? Let me check. These are 3 inches. And they're called head pins because, well, I don't know what happened to that one. They're called head pins because you can see it's like, it looks kind of like a nail. That's a head pin, and it is flat like that. So when you slide a bead on, the bead stays on. So this is a flat head pin. Of course, you have decorative head pins. Like here's a little decorative one. Here's another decorative one. It has a little ball, and here's some short ones. These look like 1 inch. These are 1 inch. The first one with 3 inches. The decorative ones are 2 inches, 1 inches, 2 inches. Usually, this is the most popular size, the 2 inch. I hardly ever use the 1 inch. I don't know why I even have them, but I do for some reason. Here's 1 inch in silver, and then these are silver plated. Now these have balls on the end. Just little balls. And these are sterling silver. They have balls also. And I'm going to show you how to make these, not today, but these you can make with sterling silver wire and a torch. And head pins hardly ever come straight. Don't ask me why, but they seem to always be curved for some reason. I don't know why, but I mean, every single one, every single size except the 1 inch. The 1 inch are pretty straight, but the 3 inch, the 2 inch, they all are curved a little bit. Now you can straighten those out, but you don't have to. I usually don't. So I'm going to work with the sterling silver, and let me grab some beads. So I'm going to make a pair of earrings. That's usually what head pins are used for. And since I have a ball on the end, I'm not going to put a bead underneath my main bead. These are little pods that I made out of polymer clay. They kind of look like little artichokes. I've shown them to you before. I think they're so cute. And so I am going to slide my first one on. And then I have, it's hard to see, but there is purple around the edges and in the center. So I have a clear purple crystal and an opaque purple crystal. I'm not sure which one I want to use. So you can't really tell that's purple. So I think I'll use the clear ones. Now I also have a little metal flower that I thought might look cute. So I slid that on, and then I'm going to slide my crystal on. And let me see how that looks. I'm not sure I like it. I might not need the flower on there. I'll leave it. I'll leave it. Okay. So I'm going to make a wrapped loop. So I have something to put the ear wire on. And for that, I need my round nose pliers. Let me find them. And I'm going to leave about probably a quarter of an inch. And I'm going to make a bend. And then I'm going to take and put my round nose pliers at the bend. And I'm going to pull the tail up over the round nose pliers all the way till it can't go anymore. And you kind of push it off to the side. And then you're going to turn your pliers, and that will form a loop. Then you can use these, but it's easier to take your chain nose or flat nose pliers and hold the loop, and you're going to wind the tail around the wire. And it looks like I'm going to need to use a pair of pliers to do it. If it were longer, I could do it with my fingers. Now, you always want to hold the loop, and I'm just turning it over so I can grab the tail. And ideally, you want to wrap this around 3 times, but it doesn't look like I'm going to have, I didn't leave enough space to wrap it 3 times, I don't think. I'm just continuing to wrap the tail around the straight part of the wire. And sterling silver is so soft. You have to be careful because it will get all wonky on you fast. And it looks like I might just make it around 3 times. I know this is very hard to see because it's so small. The wire went down and it is crossing over onto the crystal, so I'm just pulling it back up and I'm taking the very tip of it and I'm going to finish my wrap. And I want to make sure there's nothing sticking up to poke anybody. I see my loop got kind of wonky, so I'm going to have to do some straightening here. And it wasn't straight to start with, which doesn't help. And I might just need to nip that off. I'm going to take my flush cutters and trim off the very tip, so because I'm having a hard time pushing it down, I want to cut it off. That way it won't poke anybody. And then where I cut it, I just want to make sure I squeeze it down so there's not a sharp edge left. You really want to make sure you don't leave any wires sticking out, because that doesn't feel good, believe me. Okay, let me straighten out my loop. It got bent over. I'm just going to straighten it out. And then I always hang it on my pliers to make sure that everything is straight. And if it's not, I can bend it and straighten it as I see fit. And that is not the best job I've ever done. Well, so you have a wrapped loop and you have an earring ready for the ear wire to go on. Let me do the other one. Things are really crooked over here on this. And once I get it on the ear wire, I may have to straighten it again, but that looks pretty good. Let me make the other one. So I have a pair, and it would help if this wire was straight, but I'm not going to take the time to straighten it. So there, my flower goes next. If I can find the hole. And then my crystal. And so I'm going to do the same thing and leave space between the bead and the bend. I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch and bend it. And then I forgot to see what you can see. I have my pliers marked with different lines. That's so I can make my loop the same size every time. And I have it on about the edge of the 3rd line. So that would be about there. And I want to grab the tail, pull it up over the pliers, and then I'm turning it to finish the loop. So I have a loop. It looks like this. And is it going to focus? Is it going to focus? There. I'm going to wrap that tail around the space that I left between the bead and the loop. See that little space? That's where I'm going to wrap the tail around. And I do that with my pliers, holding the loop with one hand and then wrapping with the other. And I'm probably not going to take the time to finish this one. Anyway, I would just continue to turn and wrap. And like I said, sterling is so soft that it gets kind of wonky. But that's okay. You can straighten it up at the end. And I left maybe too big of a space on this one. When it gets down to the very end of the tail that you're wrapping, it can get tricky. All this stuff just takes practice. Just be patient with yourself. You'll get it. And even if you have to start over a couple of times, it's not the end of the world. Eventually, you'll be an old pro at it. And I've been doing this a long time, and you can see the troubles I have. So, okay. And it is a little crooked, but like I said, once I get the ear wires on, I will be able to straighten it up and make it hang straight. I still don't have the end quite right, but okay. So here's another pair of earrings. I wanted to show you that I'm ready to make I'm going to make a different kind of loop for this earring because there's not enough to wrap the tail around it. There's not enough. I didn't leave enough wire to do that. So I'm going to take this to about my third line, and I'm going to put the wire in between, and I turn away from myself until I can't turn anymore. I take it out and look at it, and I'm not quite finished because you want this to be just about closed. So you take it to the original position and you turn it some more until it closes. This is the hard part. I said I turn away from me, but you can turn towards you. I'm turning towards myself so I can see when it's closed up. And there you have it. Now you want to center this loop over your wire, so you put it back through, and you're going to pull it towards you or turn it towards you just a little bit so the loop is sitting up over the wire. like so. You want it centered. You want your loop centered. Now it opened up when I did that, which is okay. I'll be able to put the ear wire on, and then I'll be able to close this back up. So if I try to do it now, I'm going to have to recenter it. Okay, so there's one. And let me do the other one. This wire looks a little bit longer. I think it's a little bit longer. I should have measured it. I'm just going to take the tip off. Now it's probably shorter. Oh dear, no, it looks good. Okay, I'm going to take it to the third line again and do the same thing and turn it till I can't turn anymore. And it's not closed. So let me go ahead and try to close it up. Now you see how it's not centered over the straight part of the wire? That just doesn't look right. That's why you want to just cog it back a little so it sits up over the wire, and you're just centering it. It just is a better look. And those are ready for ear wires. Let's talk about jump rings. The old jump ring. I have a few different sizes here. And I'm not sure what sizes they are. I didn't look. I just grabbed some. Now, jump rings come, some of them come closed like this. You use jump rings a lot. I use them a lot. They're connectors. You connect different parts. Like you can see on this pair of earrings I made, I used 2 jump rings. One through the clay, and then another one through oops, I'm going out of camera range, sorry. One through the clay, and then another one through that one, and then my ear wire attaches to the second jump ring. So, and they come closed like this, or sometimes they come a little bit opened like this one. You can see that. Let me try. Can you see? I don't know. Wow. This is not, the 2 sides aren't flush like this one. Believe me, this one is open a bit. You can kind of see that the sides aren't lining up. Where my nail right there, the opening, you can see they're not meeting. And on the closed one, they meet perfectly. Jump rings, you need 2 pairs of pliers. A lot of people do it with their finger. I think it's best. You want the opening in between your 2 pairs of pliers, and one of my right hand's going to go towards me, and my left hand is going to go away from me, but just ever so slightly. You don't want, open them up as little as you need to fit it through whatever you're using it for. You don't want to open it real wide. Always open it the least amount that you need to. So you're going to end up with this. So it's open. And this is just an example. I'm not going to leave it on here. But you fit it through whatever you're fitting it through. And to close it, you do not, I repeat, do not try to squeeze it closed like that. It will never work. You have to close it the opposite way you opened it. My left hand's going to go up. My right hand's going to go down. I'm trying to, it's so hard to see, I know, but they're going to meet, and you will hear a slight click when you have them, when you have it closed correctly. Sometimes you don't hear a click, but you have to, I can't really see what I'm doing. Aye. But anyway, you want these two ends to line up. Nah, I can't see. I had to turn it up to see what I was doing. Okay, I heard it. I heard the metal on metal. So that told me that it went together, and now you can't even see where the opening was. It fit. I fit it back perfectly together. Right there is the opening, but it's closed so well that you can't even see where the opening is. So yeah, opening and closing jump rings, it's important not to squeeze it like that. You have to do the twisting. And I suggest you use 2 pairs of pliers to do that. Let's see, up next. Okay, we are almost at an hour, but I just want to show you real quick how I did the wrapped loop on the pod earrings. I'm going to show you with a bigger wire and bigger pliers so you can know exactly what I did. This is what you're going to end up. This is a wrapped loop. You see it's wrapped 3 times right there. Nice and neat. And first I'm going to make my bend, and then it doesn't matter what I'm going to make it on the second biggest. It's the same principle. I make my bend, I pull my wire up. That's not going to leave me enough of a tail. Let me just make it a little smaller. I put my pliers in the bend, and then I pull my wire up and around my pliers, and I'm turning it to finish the loop. So I end up with a loop, and then I'm going to take either my chain nose or my flat nose, and I didn't leave much of a tail. Let me try the other end. I haven't done this in a while on a big wire, so let me start by making my bend way down here. I'm going to make my loop, pull my tail up over, and then twist my pliers to finish the circle. And that's more like it. That's a tail. And this wire is supposed to be straight. I'm going to grab my tail, and there's enough wire, and sterling silver is soft enough to where I can usually use my fingers and just wrap it around 3 times. The third time around, sometimes I have to use my pliers because it gets a little harder the shorter the wire is. And it gets wonky sometimes, so continue wrapping it. And I'm just going to push down the end so it's not sticking out to poke anybody. Now, if your wraps aren't tight, you can squeeze them together and they will line up nice and pretty. And then now I'm just going to straighten out my loop to make sure it's sitting up over the wire. And it got a little wonky. And if I would have started with a straight wire going down, I would have a straighter wrapped loop. But as it is, it's pretty good. Everything looks good. There's nothing sharp sticking out. And so that's all I did on the small earrings. I just wanted to show you using something you could see better. And I want to tell you also, I will be showing you how to make your own jump rings. This is sterling silver wire, and I wrapped it around, I have some coil wires. I'll show you how to do that sometime and how you cut them apart. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being here. Please do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, share, and I will see you again real soon. Have a great day or night, whatever part of the world you're in. Bye now.